Well, tonight the arguments have been made, and now we wait for June and a decision from the Supreme Court. They were showing some of those old divisions in court today between the conservatives and liberals on the high bench. The central issue tonight is what is marriage and how is it defined in the United States?
You're not seeking to join the institution. You're seeking to change what the institution is. A fundamental core of the institution is the opposite-sex relationship, and you want to introduce into it a same-sex relationship.
And suddenly, you want 9 people outside the ballot box to require states that don't want to do it to change what you've heard is change what marriage is to include gay people. Why cannot those states at least wait and see whether, in fact, doing so in the other states is or is not harmful to marriage?
Just a fascinating set of arguments and back and forth in the courtroom today. And when the hearing was over, after a remarkable 2.5 hours for the court, the petitioners and the respondents came out to a huge throng of people, supporters and opponents, and of course the media, who all gathered around to hear them say that they were all cautiously optimistic that the case would go their way.
We took this case on for protection of our children, and we stand before you one step closer to being a legalized, recognized family in the state of Michigan. Hopefully, we're on the right side of history, and our kids will now have equal protection.
The Constitution promises equal protection and due process and liberty to all right now. It's not a popularity contest. The court, absolutely, it's their job to make sure that every individual's liberty and equality is protected regardless of state laws.
Today we had the chance to make the case for helping this country live up to its promise to become a more perfect union. And it was a wonderful chance to speak of their personal story, to make it real for the justices, because of course that's what this case is about. The real lives of real people, real couples who have knit their lives together, and the children who obviously benefit from the stability of those marriages.
I think what we talked about today is that you can love your neighbor no matter what their sexual orientation is, what choices they make about their life, and still have a disagreement about what marriage means. And the question is, who gets to decide the meaning of marriage? Is it people acting through the democratic process, or is it the federal courts?
Those were the respondents and the petitioners coming out after the court hearing today. Inside the court, it was very solemn. It was a typical, except for one outburst, a court hearing, except for that, and it was a 2.5-hour court hearing. You couldn't get a gauge of what was happening outside of the walls of the courtroom until you walked out those front steps behind me and walked down and saw a sea of people. Demonstrators on both sides of this issue, carrying signs, waving flags, chanting. They had a PA system out here. Even longtime court observers said that it was something quite remarkable as we watched that protest unfold. The protesters have pretty much cleared out now at this time of day. Just the media left to wrap up what happened here at the Supreme Court. And again, we will all wait for that decision to come sometime in June. Sue, I'll send it back to you.
Brian, before you go, you had that rare ticket to be inside the U.S. Supreme Court for this hearing today. Can you give us a little insight on what you saw?
You know, it was fascinating, Sue. I said that earlier, and it really was. It was from the minute that we were brought into the court, and then we were in the waiting room for the Public Information Office, and you start to see all the media gather in. There was an air of anticipation, even among the media, that they were on the sidelines of history here today. Then finally, it got close to 10 o'clock in the morning. They brought us up group by group. We were the last group to be seated in the court. I had a pretty good vantage point, although it was somewhat obstructed. They have the media off to the side here, but you could see all 9 justices. And when you watch the justices, their body language, the expressions they make, the looks that they exchange with each other really fill in some of the blanks of this story You can hear the audio, you can see the court sketches, but when you see the justices reacting like that, it gives you a better sense of which way they may be leaning. And that's what court observers will be dissecting for the next month or so until we wait for that decision. Sue.
Okay, interesting. Brian, thank you for your thoughts. And you can find a lot more on the debate over same-sex marriage on our website at woodtv.com, including the audio recordings of today's arguments, a photo gallery of all of the action in D.C., and an interactive map of state marriage laws across the United States. That's all at woodtv.com.